Good morning everyone. This is Kailin Kamikawa. It seems that South Korea has entered various dangerous states. On November 24, 2021, the number of new corona infections in Korea exceeded 4,000 per day. This is the first time since the first infected person occurred on January 20th last year. The metropolitan area is particularly serious, with nearly 600 seriously ill patients. On the 24th, the government went to senior general hospitals in non-capital areas, etc. We have issued an administrative order to secure a quasi-severe bed. According to the Central Epidemic Prevention Headquarters, based on midnight on the 24th, the number of newly infected people per day was a record high of 4,115. There were 4,087 domestic outbreaks and 28 foreign arrivals. Especially infected people are concentrated in the metropolitan area. Both Seoul, 1,728 people, and Gyeonggi Province, 1,176 people, reached record highs. Incheon has 219 people. On the other hand, Japan is approaching zero as much as possible. Even Japanese people are worried about where this difference comes from. Professor Jongbuk Medical University of South Korea has announced that he thinks this is a reasonable and wise view. I will introduce this time. Korean people are also very smart, but they are crushed by society and do not go out into the world. Jungang Ilbo, the 25th of November 2021. Rapid decrease in the number of infected people in Japan, showing a fatal error in K-quarantine prevention. Recently, the number of people infected with the new coronavirus has dropped sharply in Japan, and there is a lot of interest in the reason. A Korean preventive medicine expert said that the exact reason has not been clarified yet. The sharp decrease in the number of infected people in Japan is a case of showing a fatal mistake in quarantine, he insisted. Professor Lee Dak-hee of the Department of Preventive Medicine, Kyungpook National University School of Medicine said on the 16th. He posted these claims on Branch, a type of blog run by Kakao. On the 22nd, Japan recorded the lowest number of infected people per day, 50, this year. The number increased slightly to 113 on the 23rd, but decreased to 77 again on the 24th. The death toll was 0 on the 19th, 0 on the 21st, 2 on the 22nd, 2 on the 23rd, etc. Almost no occurrence. Various claims have been raised against the sharp decline in the number of infected people in Japan. Vaccine effect, based on the first vaccination rate of 79% and the second vaccination rate of 77% in Japan, and the Delta stock self-destruction theory, and the theory that the number of inspections has dropped sharply. Professor Lee said that this theory itself he criticized. I want to believe that South Korea's epidemic is better than Japan's epidemic. He also claimed that the sharp drop in the number of infected people in Japan was thanks to the failure to prevent natural infections. Professor Lee said, the biggest difference between Japan and South Korea, which has a vaccination rate similar to that of South Korea, is the country embarked from the beginning, under the name, quarantine prevention. It did not stop the natural infection that ended in asymptomatic or mild. It is in the place. The sharp decline in the number of infected people in Japan began when the vaccination rate was less than 50%. This is possible because of the existence of people with experience of natural infections that provide strong and widespread immunity. A sharp decrease in the number of infected people is not possible simply by increasing the vaccination rate. He went on to say, the theory of data fake in Japan is new coronavirus. It was a frame that dominated Korean society from the early days of the epidemic. Therefore, a very strange phenomenon seen from March to April last year, in Japan that seemed to be left without PCR testing. No one asked why the death of the new coronavirus did not explode. Insisted. Professor Lee said, if Korea and Japan have completely conflicting epidemic prevention policies from the beginning, if you were comparing and analyzing the epidemic situation with a close mutual assistance system, in a pandemic situation, we could have discovered early on the fact that epidemic prevention does not play such a great role. Repeatedly insisted. Professor Lee said, the sharp decrease in the number of infected people in Japan is the major premise of Korean epidemics, that is, infectious diseases that should never be affected even if they are asymptomatic. It shows that there is a fatal mistake in the assumption. Korea has experienced contradiction-filled epidemics for nearly 2 years. Professor Lee said, in South Korea, there is a fear of viruses that have been learned so far. Many will not be easy to accept. The harmful effects of K-quarantine have contributed to the country's leading and exaggerated fear of the new coronavirus. This was actively utilized as a result of epidemic prevention. On top of that, until now, the epidemic prevention authorities have unconditionally increased the vaccination rate. I have misguided the people as if they could solve all the problems. To get out of this difficult situation, more and more people will experience natural infections, whether they are breakthrough infections or whatever. From now on, epidemiological surveys to track the flow line and PCR tests for asymptomatic and mildly ill patients will be conducted. Should be stopped. I see, there is a reason. This is the difficult part of immunity in infectious diseases, isn't it? What happens to the human body if we aim for zero corona? Certainly, if it can be kept sterile and virus-free forever, that's fine, but it's just an amateur's idea, a desk theory. The reality is that we are exposed to various pathogens. As with the Antarctic and the jungle aborigines, if you are infected with a new pathogen or virus without immunity, it will be a big phenomenon that the area will be extinct. However, because human beings have immunity, they have antibodies. The entire region does not become a serious symptom. For example, the new influenza causes catastrophic damage to humankind. If the old type, that is, human beings have immunity, they can coexist in the future. This is where immunity is difficult, that is, in the long run. When we say PCR, even asymptomatic humans are washed out and isolated. The population misses the chance to get immunity. As a result, if you leave it alone, you'll have to make a small sacrifice. On the contrary, it causes an infection explosion. Relieved has a bad word, so to put it in detail, in the long run, slowly, quietly, little by little, spread the infection, and so does the use of masks. Instead of eliminating the infection to zero, infect it to the minimum possible and minimize the damage. The final compromise is to bring it in the direction of coexistence with the virus. I don't know about deadly things like Ebola, pathogens such as influenza, which have a particularly high infection rate but a low case fatality rate. In this way, humankind has coexisted for a long time. That's something that any immunology expert knows. In this modern era, the stupid commentators on TV can't understand it. Keep yelling, zero corona, PCR, brah, 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 brah. It has guided humanity in the wrong direction. What happened as a result? Without herd immunity, it induces a mass explosion of corona and causes a dramatic increase in the number of deaths. It appeared in the situation. That is what Korea is like today. Stupid commentators who are not immunology experts must reflect. Why did Japan not have a pandemic and have fewer deaths than South Korea? Why is an outbreak in South Korea? Tell me the answer, Mr. Tamaki. That's all. However, it is doubtful that South Korea was K-quarantine and was so sterile. This outbreak of infection in South Korea is not such a lofty reason. I think it's because I hit the water vaccine. There is no basis.